Speak on the show 2021, episode 10. It's a Help Me Understand Saturday. Help me understand Saturday. Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On It. I'm your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to the guy who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. I'm back, y'all. Excuse me. I don't know where they came from. I'm back, y'all. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing out there? I'm trying to get my volumes adjusted so I can hear what's going on in the studio and everything. How's everybody doing? Help me understand. It's Saturday morning, y'all, 7 a.m. East, Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. I had a day off last week. I had some things I had to take care of, but let's go ahead and start getting in this show. Good morning. Good morning, Maurice Big Fall. Good morning, Josh Boyd. Appreciate the support, my brother. Appreciate the support. Good morning, Brian Hoodie. Appreciate the support, my brother. Appreciate the support. Yeah, it's Saturday morning, as you know. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I got some things I need to talk about, y'all. We got some things we need to talk about. Let's get these formalities out the way. rwcoolins.com. That's the website. You can go there, get all the information you want, all the information you need for the radio show or for the show. And we'll continue to give you more of what you're looking for. I'm trying to adjust some things here, y'all. So y'all bear with me. Something just doesn't sound too correct. Hopefully it sounds good on your end. rwcoolins.com, as I said, is the website. You can go there. Follow me. We're broadcast live on YouTube and Facebook right now live. You can also download the audio after the show on Spreaker.com as well as Apple iTunes. So you can go there, get all the information you want about the show. Keep following. Good morning, Michelle Long. Appreciate the support. Call-in number 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All I ask is say what you mean what you say. That's all. That's the only requirement. That's the only requirement we have when you call into the show. Say what you mean what you say. All right. Lady Michelle, appreciate the support. Good morning. Let me start off with this before we get into this. Help me understand. Last week, I had a previous engagement, but also I did my due diligence and got my COVID-19 vaccine. I got the Johnson & Johnson, the one shot, because I'm not a needles person. So just be put that out there first. R.W. Coolins don't like needles, so he wants the one shot, get it in, get it out. Got the shot. And I would tell you, it put me under. Put me under for about a day and a half. Didn't hit me right away, but the normal side effects, headaches, little chills, little fever, different things like that. But I feel good. I don't feel like I'm walking around in the zombie apocalypse or anything. Any of the rumors you may have heard, for those that haven't gotten a shot, they're just rumors. You're going to have side effects for any time they're putting something in your body. But the bottom line is, in order for us, as I say, to get back to some sense of normalcy and what we want to do and be able to get out and travel and everything, if you have the opportunity to go and get the shot, go get the shot. The shot or the shots. Follow up, do what you got to do. We see that President Biden said first 100 days he wanted to have 1 million shots. Well, we're already there. We already 42 days early is what they say. So everybody's getting vaccinated on time. They're trying to get the kids back in school, whether it's half days food, and then they're cutting down the distances that the kids got to be apart and everything. We're doing our due diligence. We're doing what we got to do. Keep wearing your mask. Keep doing the things that you need to do to protect yourself as well as your family and those around you. And we'll be able to get back to some sense of normalcy as far as this COVID COVID-19 coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. And let me say this here. Let's just go ahead and click this into this. Help me understand. I was reading something this morning before I came on. Reading, I try to do my research and get into things, Lady Michelle, I'm scheduled for Tuesday to get mine. Get yours. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Go in there and get that vaccine. That way you can be out amongst your people, but be safe. Even after you get your vaccine, make sure you're still being safe. So, as I was saying this morning, I was trying to do some finalization for the show and everything, and I was reading some things. And I'm going to say this, and a lot of people laugh when we say this because you hear it a lot nowadays and everything like that. But I'm just going to say it. Good morning, Brenda Gray. Good morning. Appreciate the support. I was today years old. When I found out that the United Negro College Fund, the UNCF, has never in its 77-year history been spearheaded by an African-American or some called black man. In the history of the United Negro College Fund, there has never been a black man, African-American, whatever you want to call it, don't use no derogatory terms, in the head seat of the United Negro College Fund. Now, I also say good morning, Battle. Good morning, my brother. I appreciate the support. Now, it's led by a board of directors, the United Negro College Fund. But 77 years, y'all. 77 years, and the board of directors has never had a head that looks like the people that it's supporting. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I was today years old when I found this out. Now, I know a lot of y'all didn't know. And if you did, you should have called me and told me, because I was kind of shocked, taken aback, because I've always thought that this was a black African-American organization. Some things you just assume. Some things you just don't know. Good morning, Ms. Akins. Good morning. Appreciate the support. You just don't know. But I was today years old when I found out, and it's going to be led by an Atlanta businessman, Milton H. Jones Jr. He's been a board member since 2005. So congratulations to him. There's a big push about, historically black colleges and, HBCUs and things like that. So maybe, not that they were doing anything wrong, but, they're underfunded and things like that. So maybe he can get some more funding in there. Maybe they got to, the kickstart. Not saying they were doing anything bad. I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way, but I'm just saying maybe, just maybe they can get in there and get some more funding and things like that, like they do for other colleges. Now, I'm trying to understand this part, y'all. I'm going to read this statement, ignorance, that I read. And then I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit, because this is something that it puzzled me. And it's probably, if you guys heard it, or if you've seen it in the news, it probably puzzled you too. And this is what it was. This is from, I'll tell you who it was afterwards. Hold on once. This is what was said. Even though those thousands of people that were marching to the Capitol were trying to pressure people like me to vote the way they wanted me to vote, I knew those were people that love this country, that truly respect law enforcement, would never do anything to break the law. And so I wasn't concerned. But he added on. Now, had the tables been turned, this could get me in trouble. Had the tables been turned and President Trump won the election, and those were tens of thousands of Black Lives Matter and Antifa protesters, I might have been a little concerned. Senator Ron Johnson, don't know what state he's from, don't care. But if he's in your state and you're voting for him, this is what you're dealing with. So to encapsulate, to put this in a bubble, as we say, he said, and I'm going to paraphrase as I say this, because I'm just going to put it in simple terms. He said he was not concerned about all those white folks that stormed the Capitol, but if they was black, he'd have had a different opinion. Any lies told? Did I tell any lies as I said that? Were there any lies told when I repeated what he said, just in a different context, different form? These are the people. This is one. Let me just say, this is one of the people who sits in the Capitol passing laws for you, about you, and to you. And this is someone that was elected into office that felt freely making these statements, which I appreciate him saying it out loud because some people don't say it at all, but he was on the Joe Pags show and he had no problem stating how he would have felt differently if the people who were doing the insurrection on the Capitol looked differently, because he gave them the benefit of the doubt that they were law-abiding citizens and all these things. I just don't get it. Good morning, Janky Banks. Good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the support. I just don't get it, because here's the part. Now, I want to read this again because I want you to hear exactly what he said about the people who did the insurrection that we all seen on the news. Even though those thousands of people that were marching to the Capitol were trying to pressure people like me to vote the way they wanted me to vote, I knew those were people that love this country, that truly respect law enforcement, would never do anything to break the law. So I wasn't concerned. Now, had the tables been turned, and those were tens of thousands of Black Lives Matter and Antifa protests, I might have been a little concerned. You know, they say if you don't have anything nice, say don't say it. Don't say anything. And I really don't have anything nice to say, but I'm going to say this. We, not only as a community, but as a people of this country, are electing people with this mindset that sit up there, and they're the ones that we put in these offices to put laws in place and to look out for the masses, not the few. But then when you hear something like this and he says out of his mouth that it wasn't what they did, it's who did it. And you've heard me say this many times. It just shows you that as far as we've come, we still got a long way to go. And it's people like this that we need to get out of these offices. Anyone that supports this type of rhetoric, you're part of the problem. He's part of the problem. And then people sit back and say, well, he didn't really mean it like it. Yeah, he did, because he prefaced it, after he said what he said about the insurrectionists that happened, and he wasn't concerned, calling them law-abiding citizens who killed a policeman with bear spray is what they're coming down to find out. But then he prefaced, before he got into Black Lives Matter and Antifa, that this could get me in trouble. No, it couldn't. It ain't gonna get you in trouble, because this is how you truly feel. I have no problem. Let me just preface it with this. I have no problem about the way you may feel about other folks. I have no problem about the way you may feel about me or anything of the above. Just be honest about it. Don't straddle the fence. Either you're on that side, you're on this side. Don't hang in the middle. Don't straddle the fence. I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with. And this is where we're at in the United States of America when we talk about these things, is because you got so many people that straddle the fence that you really don't know which side they're coming from. 1 minute they say this, 1 minute they say that. And I'm going to digress for a minute and say this, since I wasn't on last week. I'm going to bring this up. Sharon Osbourne, case in point. I don't know if everybody's been following it up to this point, but after everything happened on The View, where she was, The Talk, where she was trying to defend Piers Morgan and what he had said about Meghan Markle, and then Sharon Osbourne was on there and she got all disheveled because she was supporting him. And they said, how can you support somebody like that? I'm paraphrasing here what was all done, but everybody's probably seen it. But then now they're doing a big investigation about things she said in the past, things she said on the shows, things she said about other co-hosts with her, different things like that. And now, because of all this, Sharon Osbourne and the media, her media team or whoever, have flipped it to portray her as being the victim. She is now the victim of the onslaught that she put towards Sheryl Underwood, who was just asking a question on the show. I'm going to be transparent for a minute about something. There's, and I got to be careful how I say this. There's some training that is being done within the organization. And that training is talking about extremism. And in there, they're talking about the, white nationalism, white supremacists, things like this. And there was a question asked during the training because they're talking about neo-Nazis and using examples and things like that. There was a question asked by an older white gentleman of why they keep harping on white nationalists, white supremacists. And then when he got his answer, he said, well, I don't hear them talking about Black Lives Matter. I don't hear them talking about Antifa. I don't hear them talking. And then he mentioned the Black Panther Party. So he had to be educated on the Black Panther Party and what they did, how they were treated by the DOJ and different things like that. The reason I go into this is, and I'm just paraphrasing here, and hopefully I didn't lose y'all, but what I'm doing is I'm showing you that there's ignorance because you don't know, and then there's ignorance because you choose not to know. Because what they're doing at this point in certain situations is they're trying to push forward the narrative that nobody that did the insurrection and nobody who is being asked about racism or defending somebody who's somebody's calling racist is considered racist. No one's putting these labels on anybody, but it's the questions you ask and the reactions to the answers that you may not want to receive is what causes more of the issue. If you ask a question, if you want to know the information, don't be upset when the answer is not what you want it to be. If they're having training about extremism, about white nationalism, things like that, these are things that the Department of Justice and national security have become an issue because they say that's the number one threat to the United States of America. White nationalism, white supremacy. This is not something coming from just us at this level. This is done by research at that level, because here's the thing: when the protests and everything was going on around about George Floyd last summer, nobody had a problem when the DOJ and Department of Justice and the FBI and everything were giving you reports of what was going on with the Black Lives Matter movement. But when you start asking and start pinpointing down to what the cause of what is going on now is white supremacy, white nationalists, and the mindset, now it's an issue because you're putting white in front of it. This is not things that Black Americans, Asian Americans, Latino Americans, it's not something that we just woke up the next day and said, we're going to put white supremacy and white nationalism in all our vocabulary going forward, because this is a problem. It's not us that's doing this. It's us, as far as minorities, if you want to call it that, who are receiving the backlash of what these people's mindsets and thought processes are. You can't continue to run around with blinders on like it's not an issue. It's been an issue. And I say this, and I said this to somebody the other day. When you talk about white nationalists, white supremacists, and all this type of thing, you also have to bear it down to the bare bones. We're talking about this now in that aspect, and they put white in front of it. But you didn't have to put white in front of the KKK, but they've been around, and we talked about it on this show before, through history. But when you say KKK, nobody gets offended. But when you say white supremacists, people get upset, because if you're white, you think we're talking about you. But we're not talking about you if you're not involved in white supremacy and white nationalists or nationalism. Stop being so damn defensive when someone brings up an issue that's going on, and because it's identifying the people that do it, and because they call themselves white supremacists and white nationalists, and now you have a problem because we're speaking it out of our mouths. Let it go. Let it go. No, I went on a little diatribe there, but had to get that off my chest, because it's some things going on around here that we're really starting to identify. We're really starting to notice, and it's all involved in these systems that we talk about. And it's not just the surface. It's under the surface, and we're going to get into that in the Mind, Body, and Soul segment. Help me understand, y'all. Help me understand. Having a bad day. Having a bad day. Everybody seen on the news 8 people killed in Atlanta, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and in Atlanta, Georgia, by 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long. See, we go with those 3 names again. Robert Aaron Long says he had a sex addiction, and he went in there to try to get rid of the reason for his problem, not internally, but the external aspects of what he felt his problem was. So he decided to go to not 1, not 2, but 3 different massage parlors and kill the workers inside. I'm not going to say kill, murder the people inside there, because it was a temptation for him and he wanted to eliminate the temptation because he is a sex addict. But I'm not going to concentrate on that. You know, that's something that's going to work its way out. We're going to find out they don't know if they want to call it hate crime. They don't know if they want to call it, they don't want to call it terrorism because they don't know what they want to call it. They don't want to put a label on it right now until they do their investigation, which, they put labels on so many other things, but they don't want to put a label on this. But he was just having a bad day. This was a statement made by an officer of the law, Captain Jay Baker, Cherokee County Sheriff's Office. Okay, wait a minute. Let me back up because that might not have been who it was. Yes, it was. Cherokee County Sheriff's Office Captain Jay Baker. This is what he said. He was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope. Yesterday was a really bad day for him. And this is what he did. He was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope. Yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did. This is a statement that you would normally equate to a child. Not a 21-year-old child that has a gun, and we still don't know if the guns were registered to him or not. But a child that's in maybe kindergarten, terrible twos, first, second grade, somewhere like that, where, you give him an excuse because he's acting out. And you say, he's just having a bad day. He's irritated. He's teasing. All the different excuses you can make for a child. But I'll be damned if you're going to sit here and allow this sheriff to make this excuse for a 21-year-old young man who says he has a sex addiction, who decided to go murder 8 people, and you're saying he had a bad day. Now, I've had bad days. We've all had bad days. But I don't think we've had a bad day where we go out and murder somebody and just call it a bad day. Now, I don't know this captain, but I know some other things came out about him. Let's talk, shall we? He posted photos of the shirts blaming China for the pandemic last March and April, as Asian American leaders and advocacy groups were already sounding alarms about rhetoric tying the coronavirus to China and Chinese people. Let's just lump it all together and say Asians as a whole. And the shirt said this. It said COVID-19 on the front. They had the Corona beer logo in the corner. And then it says imported virus from China. The words and the way that the former president used to say it, CHY-NA. This is the t-shirts that he reposted to sell on his website, an officer of the law, Captain Jay Baker. And this is the same person who was the spokesperson after they caught the murderer. And he gets on TV in a press conference and says that the young white male, 21 years old, who just killed 8 people, was having a bad day. There's something in the water. let's just put it in this word. There's something in the water that I don't think comes to my house. The pipelines don't run to my house that I know of personally. And I'm pretty sure they don't run to your house either. Because there's something in the water that runs to a certain demographics homes that fill them with hatred towards other folks that I don't understand. Not because of something they've done to them, not because of something they've done to a family member or how they treated them or the customer service they may have gotten, any of the things you can think of that you may get upset about. None of those things come into play. It's just dealing with this or the way their eyes look or the symbolism of where a virus may have started and congregated and became airborne and happened to hit the United States of America, Europe, all the countries in the world. There's something in the water that is not good. There's something in the water that is causing this hatred towards people that don't look like them, to make them feel that they have this superiority complex where they say things and do things, and then there's justifying behind it. I don't understand it. I don't get it. But I'm going to transition to a part that I'm not very well versed in, but I truly understand the goodness of. And that's God. Because most of these people who are drinking this water continually call themselves Christians, God-fearing, all the different things you can think of. They said the president was put here by God or put in a position by God. And they always talk about how they're Christians and this cop and the senators and the congressmen, they always talk about this, but they always have this division that dwells in their hearts. And those that they have this division with, that they have this hatred for, we are always the ones, and I'm not just talking about African American folks, I'm talking about everybody who has to feel as though we have to turn the other cheek when we run into these type of people. There comes a time, there comes a day of reckoning where we got to look at it and say, I'm tired of turning the other cheek against this. We need to come together and do what we need to do. We need to mobilize as they did without obstruction from government, because here's what we know to be true. And I think this is one of the reasons why we rarely or hesitate to come up with these movements consistently. Because the government, FBI, DOJ, they find ways to infiltrate the movements that we come to build, to dismantle it from the inside out, because they don't want certain organizations to build up to be powerful or to build up to be able to make change for their community, within their community as a whole. But I asked the question, when they do these things, how did this white nationalism, white supremacist, neo-Nazi movement, all these things on the United States soil get to be so large? You can't tell me that they didn't see these things happening. You can't tell me that there isn't talk about what they're trying to do. You can't tell me that most of the people who are in charge to stop these type things aren't involved in these type things. The hands are dirty. The hands are dirty. And you can't clean your hands if your hands are in the dirt with the people that you're trying to, per se, stop. I mentioned before, it took the first African-American Secretary of Defense to have a stand down for training within the DOD ranks for them to actually address extremism, white nationalism within the ranks. After all the years that the military DOD has been established, it took the first African-American man, as a Secretary of Defense to do something to really look at what the problem is and where it's coming from. What does that say? I jokingly said about the United Negro College Fund, which is a good thing. But to know for 77 years we haven't had a African American black man as the board member for that, or woman as that board director. We get back to the first that I talked about shows ago, and you have to ask yourself, how does this happen for so long? Is it part of the problem where we're not in the processes, or we choose not to be in the processes? What is it? What is it? Let's leave that alone. Having a bad day. Not me. Not me. But that's what they said about a murderer of 8 people, that he was having a bad day. Let's talk about jury, because I want to understand this from the aspect of us as a people, or anyone out there who talks about the justice system and how the justice system works, how we want to change the justice system, how it needs to be reformed, how all these things need to happen for us to be able to have a good chance of getting justice when we should have justice. Good morning, Sharice Joseph. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the support. April Weeden, good morning, sis. Appreciate you. So when we talk about jury, now I'm going to get into something here. Jury duty. You know, I think this is something that we need to really pay attention to. And I'm trying to understand from an aspect of why we avoid things like jury duty when but we get mad about how the justice system turns out for someone that's on trial. So let me just break it down like this, because I've never served on jury duty. I'll be honest with you. I don't know, it's because I move so much, something like that, but I've never come up on the rolls. But I was interested in reading this, and I want everybody to understand this, because it's something that we need to take into account when we talk about the justice system and where we get pissed off about it. Jury duty is an obligation of U.S. citizens who receive a summons from a court to appear on a particular day and time to potentially serve on a jury. Jury duty is a civic responsibility. When you serve on a jury, you're ensuring the defendant's Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial and an impartial jury. During the jury selection process, lawyers for each side are allowed to question potential jurors. If a potential juror is biased or has a conflict of interest, they could be dismissed from the jury pool. Potential jurors also may be dismissed by the court if they are not needed, whether because a full jury has been seated or a plea negotiation. Now, what that breaks down for me as far as jury duty is, you get selected. You get a letter in the mail. You know, as a supervisor manager, I've seen the letters come in. Before you get a letter in the mail, tell you got to show up at this time. You go there. They either call you up, they do some questioning, you know, ask you about who you are, your background, all that type of stuff. They ask you things pertaining to you, and then they ask you about things pertaining to the case that they may have, or how you would feel about a case and things like that. From what my understanding is, if anybody knows anything different, chime in and let me know. But I think what gets lost in this is how we have most people try to avoid being chosen for jury duty. Once they get the letter, they go in there and they don't want to be on jury. So they do what they can. They say what they think the person doesn't want to hear, so they can get so they won't get chosen to perform jury duty. That's a problem. Let's start there. That's a problem. It's a problem because you're trying to get out of something. There's a civic responsibility, which is something that you don't have to do, but you're trying to get out of something because you don't want to serve on a jury. But at the same time, when we see these things happening in these court cases and things like that, we get pissed off because the jury did not see the evidence as you did. But at the same time, you chose to get out of the time when you were supposed to serve your civic responsibility to sit on a jury to either find somebody guilty or innocent. So before you argue about that, before you get upset about that, before we sit back all the time and talk about the system, what part do we play in the system that we don't take advantage of? What part do we play in the system where we don't do our due diligence to sit on the jury, to hear how trials are presented, to give the facts, to listen to the facts and how to present it, and to come up with a conclusion, no matter who the defendant may be? Sometimes we're guilty of our own demise because we're not having representation. Now, I say that, but let me piggyback with this. When we talk about a jury of your peers, essentially, it's just a way to get a fair jury made up of citizens who could be considered peers of the person on trial. This is a way to reduce bias in the jury. They are the ones who hear the case and then decide if they think you are guilty or not. The court cannot take different jurors off the jury simply because of their ethnic background. Let me read that again. The court cannot take different jurors off the jury simply because of their ethnic background. This is what it states, but we know this is not what is always practiced. But if you say that you can't take them off because of their race or ethnic background, but then you have an ethnic background who chooses not to serve on the jury because they don't want to be there, then you have two things working against that so-called defendant who may look like those jurors who are trying to get off the jury duty, and those who are being put off by the lawyers that are appointing the jury. That's two cases for one trial that this defendant is not going to be sitting and being judged by a jury of his peers or her peers. Because you have two different ways that people are trying to get you, because of what you look like and where you live and your ethnic background, all these things into account, to get you off the jury so they can get their end result of charging the defendant as being guilty. But we play a role in it as well. Peers. The definition. One that is of equal standing with another. One belongs to the same societal group, especially based on age, grade, or status. Now, I bring this all up because when we talk about juries, we talk about trials, we see them all the time on the news, and then we see how the jury pool is made up. And then we always hear a jury of your peers. But most of the time we hear a big trial. And in that big trial, you'll hear the jurors are made up of 3 women, 7 men. And then in that breakdown of it, they'll say 2 white women, 1 Hispanic woman, or 5 white men, 2 black men, 1 Hispanic man. All the demographics are put into play. But then you have to ask yourself, how did they come up with these numbers of people, or the demographics of the people that they decided to keep? Because we only see the surface. We don't see the workings from behind the scenes, because all we do is say, I don't want to serve on no jury. I don't want to do jury duty. But when we do that, we're doing a disservice to any defendant who may be on trial, because that defendant could be one of your peers. If anyone that's listening has ever had anyone in their family, close friend, relative, whatever you can think about, that has gone to trial for something, and you sat in that courtroom and listened to the evidence presented and everything like that, and they ended up getting sentenced, they weren't sentenced by the judge. They weren't sentenced by the lawyers. They were sentenced by the jury. So we need to take more accountability about serving on these juries when our time comes up. We avoid things that we shouldn't avoid, and then get mad at things that we shouldn't be mad at because we played a part in the process. Judy Mills, good morning, sister. We look at it as an inconvenience instead of looking at it as possibly being a benefit. Exactly. Life-changing for someone. That's the only point I'm making. I'm not here to judge anybody. If you've done your due diligence, do it. I'm just giving you the information to get you to understand that these processes we have to be a part of from the ground up. But like I said, the reason I brought this up was everybody knows they're seating the jury for George Floyd's trial. Well, for Derek Chauvin, the cop who killed George Floyd. Let's just be real. The role is curious. It's crucial. Thank you, June. And this is an article I found. It came from the Associated Press. And I'm going to read some of this real quick because I think it's something you need to understand. And this is what is going on during this jury process to find jurors for this trial. And this is why I'm talking about this, because I think it jumped out at me, and I think it should give you understanding of where we sit when we have these things going on and why we need to make sure that we're involved in the process. And it starts off with striking a black juror, Floyd activists see racism. A prospective juror who once lived in the neighborhood where George Floyd was arrested told the attorney for an ex-officer charged in Floyd's death that he had a personal reason for wanting to serve on the jury. A personal reason for why he wanted to serve on the jury. And here it goes. A prospective juror who once lived in the neighborhood where George Floyd was arrested told the attorney for an ex-officer charged in Floyd's death that he had a personal reason for wanting to serve on the jury. Because me, this is what he said, because me as a black man, you see a lot of black people get killed and no one's held accountable for it. And you wonder why or what was the decisions. Juror number 76 said under questioning during jury selection in Derek Chauvin's murder trial. So with this, maybe I'll be in the room to know why. So this juror is telling them, I want to be in the room. I want to be on the jury. I want to hear the evidence presented. I want to know why these things are happening to us. Not from the media, not from anybody else, but I want to hear exactly how it's presented in this courtroom. Because I grew up in this neighborhood where this happened. You see the point I'm getting to? Now, it says, but the man won't be in the room. Even though he said he felt he could weigh the evidence fairly, he was struck by the defense. So the defense attorneys said, no, we don't want him. You see, that's that part. Number one, we don't want to do jury duty. Number two, they took him out because he wanted to be on the trial and they put him out. Let me give you the details on why. He felt he could weigh the evidence fairly. He was struck by the defense. It was an illustration of how difficult it can be for people who say they have personal experience with police misconduct to make it onto juries that hold them accountable. We have a black man who was probably in the best position to judge the case being excluded. The man said he experiences daily racism, and he strongly agreed that police are more likely to respond with force on black people than on white people. Levi Armstrong called the juror's exclusion a huge slap in the face that just underscores why people believe there is systemic racism at work within these judicial processes. Jury selection in Chauvin's case is nearly complete, with 12 of the 14 required jurors selected by Thursday. So far, now here's the racial makeup. So far, the racial makeup of the jury is evenly split. 6 of the jurors are white, 4 are black, and 2 are multiracial, according to the court. Jurors number 76, who was this man who wanted to be on the jury, they are being referred to in court only by a number to protect anonymity, said Minneapolis police would ride through the neighborhood with another one bites the dust after a local person was shot or arrested. Let me repeat that part. This juror who wanted to serve on his juror said the police ride through their neighborhood with the song "Another One Bites the Dust" playing out of their vehicle after a local person was shot or arrested by the police. Levi Armstrong said such context will be essential to the group of 12 people deciding Chauvin's fate. Local activists have noted that several selected jurors have relationships with police officers and wondered, why can't a black man who has had negative experience with police make it on a jury? Nelson used one of his preemptory strikes to dismiss the man. I guess this is the defense lawyer. He used a preemptory strike to dismiss the man after trying and failing to have him struck for cause, citing his negative opinion of Minneapolis police and his statements that Floyd was murdered. Prosecutors argued against striking for cause, saying the man was simply reflecting on the reality of his experience and pointed out he had said he could set his personal feelings aside. So this man has said everything that you would want to hear from a juror. Yeah, I've heard the case. I've heard the news. I've heard what's going on in the news. But I think I can be fair when they present the evidence, because I'm going to listen to the evidence. And I think my experience with police and my experience as being a black man like George Floyd was puts me right in the pocket of what you're looking for to be a juror on this trial for this police officer. But they struck him for cause. Well, they didn't strike him for cause. Sorry about that. But they put him off. They didn't choose to keep him on. Nelson's preemptory strike, which was not challenged, did not require an explanation. Attorneys cannot strike a juror based on race, is what they say. Hennepin County Judge Peter Cahill said he didn't think a challenge would have worked in this case, citing the man's negative statements about the Minneapolis Police Department. So because he said negative statements about the police department, he's not able to sit on the jury. But he noted the man's statements also showed he could be fair. So now they're weighing it. He could be fair, but he also made disparaging statements. And this is what he said. My inference from what he said is, I can put it aside, and if he is not guilty, I can reach that verdict because I feel comfortable telling people why it happened. Cahill said, adding that would put him right in the middle as far as fair and impartial. Alan Turkheimer, a Chicago-based jury consultant, said he was not surprised the defense would try to keep someone who experienced police brutality off of a jury. Sometimes people just can't be fair, even if they don't know it. It's so ingrained, it's so hard to shake something like that. He added that questioning and ultimately striking prospective jurors based on their experiences provides a built-in advantage for police officers. During racial justice rallies this week, many have turned their attention to systemic racism within the justice system and how juries are selected. It's a horrible racist thought process. We have to stop people who may get angry, the angry black man or angry black woman, from getting into the jury because they won't take this seriously. I don't make this up, I just read it. For the juror, the idea of being a part of forming Chauvin's verdict was something he approached as a weighty matter. He said he had avoided watching in-depth news coverage of Floyd's death, even steering clear of the subject with his wife. I didn't form an opinion on Mr. Chauvin because I didn't know him, the juror said. It's sad. It's another black man being murdered in police hands. That's all I could say. Now, that's a lot to take in, but you can go to the Associated Press and look it up. It was published on March 19th. On the Associated Press website. But it goes into what we're talking about and what I just said. When we talk about jury duty, this was a man, an African-American man, who had experiences with the police, run-ins with the police, things like that. He's seen them come through the neighborhood after killing somebody or arresting somebody, playing another one bites the dust, things like that. But he's not fit to sit on a jury as far as they're concerned. But the judge played it both ways. He said, well, he has he already has this opinion about the Minnesota Police Department, but at the same time, he would have been fair when it came to the evidence being presented. Why isn't he on the jury then? Why is he not sitting on the jury? This is where we need to look at ourselves sometimes and do that retrospective look and realize that we need to do our duty when these trials come up, when you get jury duty, to go and sit in a jury box, to understand how the process works, number one, but also to be a member and a jury of the peers of the person, the defendant that is being charged with a crime. Nobody's saying that you need to go in there with the mindset that any black man, any black woman, or anybody that, is innocent from the start, and that's how you're going to feel about it because they look like you. No. You go in there with the mindset that you listen to the evidence and you do your due diligence as far as finding them guilty or innocent. But we get a bad rap about this because they think we're going to just find anybody that's done something wrong because they look like us innocent. But they never put that label on people that don't look like us, that they're going to find us guilty because we don't look like them. Or they're going to find their peers innocent because they look like them. we need to start doing the things that we need to do. It's just like the voting that we talk about all the time. We're going to get into that because there's a lot of things with voting we need to talk about before this next election comes up. But I digress. Let me get back to this. Right now, in the news, these are the current sexual assault, sexual harassment cases that are high profile, that are on the docket. Let me break them down. Deshaun Watson, football player, quarterback, Houston Texans. 7 women. Might be up to 11 now. I don't know. Say he was getting massages and stuff, sexual assault, sexual harassment. Not going to get into that because we got too many to go. But this is one case that's coming up. Somebody's got to be a juror. People have to be jurors on this. Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo. Everybody knows who he is. There'll be a trial coming up for that. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, they're talking about reopening the case on him and his sexual assault. Somebody's going to have to sit on something. R. Kelly. Everybody already want to talk about R. Kelly, but is he going to be judged by a jury of his peers when he comes to court? Because everybody's heard everything in the news. Everybody's drawing their own conclusions about who R. Kelly is. I don't care what y'all say. I'm going to listen to R. Kelly music, Step to the Name of Love, whatever you want to call it. I'm still going to listen to it. That's just me, though. Now, if he's found guilty for the crimes that they got him charged for, then that's another conversation we'll have on another day. But right now, he is not guilty of anything because he hasn't been charged of anything. He's in jail, waiting for trial. Public opinion. Harvey Weinstein. Look how long this has been in the courts. Jeffrey Epstein, who killed himself, but Ghislaine Maxwell. She'll be coming up on trial here shortly. Donald Trump, all those women that came with cases against him, he's open now. They're going to be coming after him for the sexual assault, sexual harassment cases on him. Tiny and T.I. I know y'all looking at me like, why you gonna bring their names up? Well, they're about to go to trial too. They're gonna have some issues going on because of people coming up with these accusations against them. Well, the reason I bring these cases up, these are sexual assault, sexual harassment cases that are in the news that are coming up. Now, I want you to think about these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cases that are just high profile. And then bring it down to the normal level where we're at. And think about all the cases that happen on a daily basis in a court. Think about any time you've gone to a courtroom to go to a ticket, speeding ticket, divorce court, any court you can think about that you've gone to in a courthouse. And think about all the people you see in there and all the cases they have on a docket. And then think about all the jurors that have to be selected for a lot of those cases. And then, think about all the people that got out of jury duty, not because it was, as Judy Mills said, because it's an inconvenience, rather than them doing their civil duty to maybe be the difference between an innocent man going to jail or being set free. But when it's not us, when it's not you or someone you know, we take it for granted. We take it for granted. We take these things for granted, but we always talk about we want to change and the system needs to be changed or reformed. But we have to play our part in what the system provides us to play in order to change the system. Other trials you got coming up. You got George Floyd. They're sitting jurors right now. Breonna Taylor. They already had that, but I think they're going to have some more things with that. Robert Aaron Long, the guy that just shot the people down in the people down in Atlanta the other day. Ahmaud Arbery. Now, I bring that one up, and that was puzzling to me, and I'm concerned about that one. Because you see the cover-up that happened before we even get to trial. They didn't even arrest the people that did this to him when they shot him. So what kind of trial is going to happen in that area when they say a jury of their peers, when everyone in that area looks like them, when the DA is friends with them, when the police officers in the area are friends with them? What kind of evidence is going to be presented? What's going to go on with that, where the demographics of the area that we're talking about is not consistent with the demographics of the United States of America? A jury of your peers. That's what they call it. All I'm saying is we, as individuals, we need to do what we know is right when we have the opportunity to do it. Stop avoiding these things. We can't continue to say it's an issue if we're part of the issue of not doing what we're supposed to do. Just doesn't make sense. We got to get better at holding ourselves accountable when it comes to doing what we're supposed to do. Because the thing is, you may be in that chair one day. God forbid, we don't want to put that in there. But there's always a chance that you could be a defendant in a trial. And then when you look at that jury pool and you don't see a jury of your peers, now what? Now what? Because you're going to be looking up there to see if anybody looks like you. And then there's nobody up there that looks like you. And then the first thing you're going to say is, they ain't even come out here to do jury duty. Just put it out there. Something to ponder. Something to ponder. Mind, Body, and Soul segment, y'all. Well, this is the year 2021, and this year 2021 is about self-care, self-help, taking care of self, and we're taking it one day at a time. Mind, body, and soul. Today on the Mind, Body, and Soul segment. Today, the Mind, Body, and Soul segment is dealing with rehashing everything we've talked about today. And here we go. Maybe you are searching among the branches for what only appears in the roots. Maybe you are searching among the branches for what only appears in the roots. You know, this quote can go a lot of different ways. Because what we know to be true is that when we see a tree, a beautiful tree, full of leaves, say it's fall. It's fall. The leaves have changed colors, the tree is full, and we see the beauty of that tree from the top leaf all the way down to the base of the dirt. But we don't see what causes that tree to be so beautiful. And it's the roots. The roots of that tree are what provides that nourishment, the lifeline, the beauty of the tree. But in life, what we do is we don't stand rooted in what we know to be true. We don't stand rooted in the values that were instilled in us. We don't stand rooted in the base, and that's God. We waver, we go different ways, but as the quote said, it said, maybe you're searching among the branches for what is only appearing in the roots. Because everything that looks good to us may not be good for us. And when we see this beautiful tree and we see the branches of the tree and everything like that, it's just like our lives. We see everything at face value for what is presented to us. When we talk about the people that were killed in Atlanta, and we talk about the case for George Floyd, and we, and different things like that, what we find out is everything that's on the surface is what we deal with. Because we never, in most cases, when there's issues, when there's problems, when there's things going on, get to the root cause of the problem. We do the superficial fixes, but we don't get to the root. Because what we know to be true is if that beautiful tree does not have the strong roots to uphold it, which I've had this incident a couple of weeks ago, good wind, good storm come through, that tree's coming down. And when that tree comes down, the first thing you're going to see are the roots. And what do we pay attention to when that tree comes down? Not the beauty of the tree anymore. We pay attention to how big the roots are, how long the roots are, how deep those roots may have been in that ground. Because the foundation has been compromised. The foundation has been compromised where the beauty of that tree is not the focus point anymore. But we never look at the beauty of that tree being supplied by the root cause. We have to do this in life. Everything has a root cause and a purpose. But we look at all the extracurricular things going on around us, but we never bear down to what is really the cause of the things that go on. As I mentioned about jury duty and these cases that are going on, when you serving on jury duty may not change the whole system, but you can be the change of one case by being and serving your jury duty when you're supposed to. Root cause, the roots of a tree, they're not seen. But I would tell you this: when you talk about the root cause of problems and you talk about the roots of a tree, they go hand in hand. Because the root cause and the roots of the tree, the root cause of an issue is the strongest part of the issue, and the roots of a tree are the strongest part of a tree. It's just that simple. Let's get to the root cause of what's going on with us. Let's get to the root cause of our issues. Let's get to the root cause of what ails us and work these things out, because all the superficial things come and go. Case in point, every fall, going into winter, the leaves fall off the tree. The tree is not as beautiful in the fall, winter, as it is in the spring and summer. Root cause, but those roots underground, they never change. The roots underground are still supplying that beautiful tree and what you view as that ugly tree, because we're concentrating on the branches and not the root. Just something for you to think about. Brother Terrence, great show, bro. And thanks for sharing your true vaccine experience. Get vaccinated. Yes, sir. Get vaccinated, y'all. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. I'm not a needle person. Let's just go run down this again. I'm not a needle person, but I'm a live my life type person. So I got the vaccine because I'm trying to do some things this summer. I'm trying to get out and enjoy life. Not that I haven't been doing it during the pandemic, but I'm gonna get out here and enjoy life and start going things. And I'm gonna do it safely, not like these people out here. The spring break down in Florida, we had something out here in Las Vegas where I think the Casino Circa, they opened up because of the March Madness, and they got the pools open because it was 86, 82 degrees yesterday, somewhere in there, and they had the pools open, people out in the pool and everything. No mask to be found. No mask to be found. First of all, I'm not going out there with no mask. And second of all, I ain't getting in no pool unless it's in the backyard of this house. So that's where we're at with that. So be safe out there, y'all. Take care of yourselves and do what you got to do. Also, pay attention to this trial, the George Floyd trial. And I only tell you to pay attention to this because I think it's something that we need to spotlight and really pay attention to how this thing is going to play out. They say that the $27 million that the family received is going to be a hindrance towards some of the jurors and all that kind of stuff, where they're saying that, well, now the family got paid, is not important and everything like that. Don't go with that. Listen to the trial, listen to the evidence. I'm waiting to hear the evidence they're presented on why this is not a murder charge. You should be doing the same thing. You should be doing the same thing. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, keep your faith in God. I'll see y'all next week. I appreciate everybody tuning in. And if ain't nobody told you, I love y'all. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Take care. See y'all next week. And I'm out. Peace.